Well, good morning. Good morning. So glad you're all here today. We are getting started in a brand new series today entitled Starting Over. And really excited about this talk. Let me just say this before we jump in. On your way in, we have a couple of cabinets at the entrance doors, and we have sermon notes there, but we also have some starting over invite cards. If maybe this becomes a series that you think, I'd really like to invite my neighbor, I'd like to invite that guy I work with, or you have a friend you'd like to bring, grab one of these on your way out, and then just get it to them this next week. So, let me ask you a question, get things started this way. Have you ever tried to build something, let's say it be a toy house for your kids, a dresser drawer, something that had some assembly instructions, but you really didn't want the assembly instructions. You were smart enough to do it by yourself, but once you started building it, what you ended up building was not what was on the picture. Have you ever done that? And you're like, goodness, what am I supposed to do with this part? You know, this part, there's no room for it. Or you think they're missing some parts because these screws don't line up with this. And the truth of it is, I tried to build something without the instructions. You ever done that? Guys, we're guilty of that a lot. We look at those instructions as kind of just a waste of time. I can innovate my way through this. I can assemble it by myself. But then you look back and you're like, what do you have to do? I have to start over. I had one time that I was trying to build something for my kids, and what I built was not what was supposed to be built. And so I had to disassemble it, read the instructions, and start all over. Now, there are a lot of things in life that we start over that they're simple and they don't mean much. Building a toy house, it's simple and it doesn't mean much when you have to start over. A diet that maybe you got started on and kind of lost your traction and just, I've got to start over. Maybe a reading plan, you're trying to read certain books and you got started but kind of lost your momentum and you have to start over. There are a number of things that are simple that we have to start over. It's really tough when you get into the difficult things. When I have to start over in a new family. Or I'm trying to start over with overcoming this addiction. I tried and I lost my way and I lost my momentum. I'm still in the same place I was when I started and I've got to start over. Sometimes financially we can lose ourselves, and many people find themselves bankrupt. They have to foreclose on things. They have to file for bankruptcy. And how do you start over? Sometimes starting over in a new city is tough. You moved from one location to another location, hoping that things would be new and better, but it's tough starting over. We all have to start over from time to time, and we start over in a variety of different areas. And in this series, we're going to push on how can we do this effectively? How can we do it with God and under His guidance and in a way that actually brings peace in our lives? There's a verse that many people are familiar with in the Old Testament. It comes from Jeremiah 29. Verse 11, it's at the top of your sermon notes there. It says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Now, if we were to stop right there, that would be exciting news. That would be fantastic because God's got plans for me. They're going to be good plans. Everything's going to be up and to the top. It's going to be kind of like a mountaintop experience. Truth be told, though, when you're on one mountaintop and you're looking at the next mountaintop, there's a valley in between. And you can be at one place thinking, this is where I am and that's where I want to go. This is what I'm doing right now. That's where I want to go. I'm single, but I'm about to get married. I'm in school, but I'm about to graduate. I'm working for somebody. I'm about to launch my own business. I'm in this setting. I'm about to be in that setting. Challenge is in between. There's a lot of stuff in between. And it's in that in-between stuff that we tend to get jacked up and off track. The Bible says in Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Here's the truth of your life and my life, and there's no getting around this. Going from mountaintop to mountaintop, there are valleys in between, and all of us from time to time will have to weather and travel through certain valleys. And some of those valleys, truth be told, if you were to evaluate your life, some of the valleys you've gone through or you're currently going through are valleys that you brought about by your own decisions. Those might have been good decisions. They also might be decisions you'll look back on and say, I really shouldn't have done that. I really shouldn't have gotten involved with that person. I wish I just would have walked away. I wish I never would have bought that pack of cigarettes. I wish I'd have never bought that first bottle. I wish I'd have never gone to that first thing, because this is a valley that I've been in for a very, very long time, and it's a valley that my own decisions led me to. Sometimes they're valleys that God leads you to. A job closes out and you have to relocate. A sickness that might come along that God allows it to come, and you're in a valley between health and health. There's a sickness right now. How do you start over with these things? If you have your Bible, I want you to look at Genesis chapter 12. We're going to look at a guy that was acutely aware of starting over. This guy by the name of Abraham. Now, he's going to be listed as Abram, and he's going to have his name transferred and changed down the road, but we're just going to refer to him as Abraham for right now, because that's who this is. And he is about to have to start over. He is about to be in the same place that you and I are from time to time. He says here in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, the Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Now stop right there for a second. This is a guy, we're going to find out that this is a guy that has a lot to his name. He's got a lot of resources. He's done well for himself. His namesake, so to be, is pretty wide, pretty broad. He is 75 years old. Okay, he is not a young whippersnapper. He is 75 years old, and God is saying, I want you to leave. You imagine if you're 75 and God is saying, hey, now's the time to start over. You would think, you should have done this 30 years ago or so, but God is telling him, I want you to go to a land, and you're going to travel, and I'm not even going to tell you where you're going yet. Okay, embrace that for just a moment. Have you ever been in a situation, maybe you're currently in it, where you're traveling a road that you really don't know where it's going? I really have no idea how we're going to get there. I really have no idea how this marriage is going to end up. I really have no idea how this business is going to go. I really have no idea the trajectory and the path that my kids are going to take. We're on a path that, much like Abraham, is go, and I'll show you when you get there. It says in verse 2, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So right there, it sounds pretty good. It says that the Lord is saying to Abraham, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you into a nation. I'm going to make your name known. You're going to have some fantastic things coming your way. And that all sounds good to the point that Abram is going to respond to it. He has no idea of the details, but he's going to follow. So it says in this next verse, so Abram left. He took God up on his word. He leaves. As the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai. They did not have kids to list here. It is talking about the fact that he's got his nephew, Lot. He's got these servants, but it does not list any kids. There's no kids yet to name. So he's 75 years old. He's heading out. His nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated and the people had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. So let's stop for just a second. They're traveling along. We're going to find out this is not a short distance. They're traveling, and God says, you're here. They're going to look around and say, this is it. This is where God's called us to be. We were starting over and we were traveling. We had no idea where we were going. We had no idea how this was going to finish up. And God finally says, all right, this is the place. And watch what is reminiscent of this. In verse 10, it says, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. Now, stop right here for just a second. You're Abram, and you've left. You're 75 years old. You have an entire group of people who are under your responsibility. You tell everybody, we're leaving. When it says that he took everybody, this is a definitive statement. Guys, we are not coming back. We're not going to move back. We're not going to test the waters. We're not moving to Tampa just to see if it works, and then we'll go back to the other city. This is an all-in move. We are all moving. They're all under his responsibility, and he has no idea where they're going. Finally, when they get there, they look around. There's no rain. There's no crops. There's no vegetation. There's no animals. There's nothing but famine. They get to this place, and Abram's only decision is to keep moving to go to Egypt. Now, I want to put a map up here so you can kind of capture what's going on here. They're traveling from up top, you see Haran. They would have traveled about 500 miles to Canaan. That's where Israel, Jerusalem area is. They get there, and it's nothing but famine. They have gotten there by walking on foot, by traveling on animal, and nothing. Let me ask you, put in pause, leaving the map up for just a second. Have you ever started over and what you thought was going to be good didn't end up being good? You thought that marriage was going to be great and it wasn't? You thought that business partnership was going to be great and it kind of just dwindled and kind of got kind of stale, and now you're in this place of how do I start over with this? You get into something that you thought was going to be fantastic, and then you get there, and God says, this is the place, and you look around, and there's nothing living here. And if I stay here, I think all of my cattle are going to die. If I stay in this marriage, I think I'm going to lose my kids. If I stay in this job, I think I'm going to lose myself. There's this great dilemma when we have started over and we get to somewhere, and it's not near as fertile as we thought it would be. And what do we do in this situation? For Abram, he continues all the way down to Egypt. He is going to travel down to Egypt. Now, if I could just kind of paraphrase some things, what's going to happen is he's going to get down here to Egypt, and he is going to wrestle with a few things. He is going to get confronted by the leader of Egypt, the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is ultimately going to push Abraham back. Abram's going to get sent back from Egypt, back up to Canaan. He's going to end up trying to just make a life there in Canaan. He's going to end up having to separate from his nephew Lot. They have too many people. They have too many horses. They have too many camels. They have too many things. There's no way that this land can really contain us. So they separate and go different directions. In that time, remember that Abram's got this promise. God's going to do something. But I don't have any kids. So Sarah, who's an older lady as well, she's not having any babies. Sarah's going to have the idea, why don't you sleep with my handmaiden, Hagar? He's going to do that. She's going to become pregnant. She's going to provide a child. They're going to name that child Ishmael. But then there's going to be animosity within the family. Sarah's going to eventually get pregnant with a boy named Isaac. And because of that, they're going to send Hagar and Ishmael away. And now it seems like they've got traction. Now it seems like, okay, maybe this is why we're starting over. Abram's got his child, he's got his son, he's got his wife. And then, in a turn of things, God is going to ask Abraham to do the most abstract, extreme thing. It's going to say to Abram, I want you to take your son and I want you to sacrifice him to me. And this is completely against Jewish culture. This is completely even against pagan culture. Abram doesn't understand it. He's going to respond reluctantly, but he's going to respond. He's going to take his son, prepare him to sacrifice him, completely confused about where he is, completely in the weeds of the valley, so to say. And right as he's about to sacrifice his son, God's going to stop him. And he's going to say this in Genesis chapter 22. It says, the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. And it seems like, okay, now we're going to come out. Now we're coming out of the valley. Now it's time to the mountaintop again. And things are going to finish with pastel colors. There's going to be soft music in the background. We're going to have the happy ever after ending. Everything's going to be great from this point forward. Do you know what the first verse of the next chapter is? Sarah dies. His wife dies in the very next chapter. It's like, how do you keep starting over? How do you, at 75, get this promise from God? I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to do something in you, and I'm going to do something through you, and I want you to go to the land that I'll show you. If you were to use this visual, it's up on a mountaintop, and you're looking at another mountain in the distance, and you're like, we're going from here to there, and it's all going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. But once you start traveling down the mountain, you get into the valley, and there are predators down there. There's danger in the valley. And I'm in this valley a lot longer than I thought I would be. I really thought that the transition would be easier. I thought I would transition into being married a lot simpler than I did. I thought I would transition into being a parent a lot simpler than I did. It's not easy, truth be told. I don't say this in any other environment. I don't have fun with it. I don't enjoy my reality right now. Or maybe you're in a work environment. You started your own business and you're in the valley and it's just a little tougher than you anticipated. It's like, boy, we're in the valley a lot longer than I thought we would be. Abraham is like that, and he is a guy that's acquainted with consistently and constantly starting over. With that, he holds his line, he serves the Lord, he stays as faithful as he can, and after he perishes, when in the New Testament it's referring to Abraham, listen to these two captions of Abram. It says, Romans chapter 4, in verse 18, it says, this is reflecting back on his life. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and so became the father of many nations, just as it had been said to him, so shall your offspring be. It's this idea that even though everything was stacked against him, even though the starting over process was really daunting, he still believed God. He still stayed faithful. Hebrews chapter 11 says this, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land, and like a stranger in a foreign country, he lived in tents and as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. By faith, Abraham, even though he was past age, and Sarah herself was barren, that's saying they weren't quite 30, that's saying they were a little older, was enabled to become a father because he considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. You look at Abraham, and he ends up fulfilling God's call and God's promise. You look at where he started, and there's this promise, I'm going to bless you, I'm going to make you into a nation. All of that, that's all great. In between those two spots was really, really tough. Really tough. Now, let's try and play this into our world, okay? There's a phrase that I've used for years, trapped in transition. I watch people who receive a promise from God or an instruction for God or a nudging towards a blessing. And it's like being on this mountaintop and feel like this is where I'm going. We're going to get married and we're going to have a fantastic family. Everything's going to be great. Or I'm starting this ministry and we're going to reach so many people and everything's going to be great. I'm moving to this new city. It's going to be awesome. Things are going to thrive. It's going to be great. And maybe at some point we do walk in the fulfillment of that. You do have that great family. You do have that fantastic ministry. You do have those things. But along the way, in between, I just have watched people time and time and time again get trapped in transition. What does that mean? Let's play it out like this. You have a person who graduates from high school, and they can't get into the life of college. They can't get into that flow, can't get into the circle. They can't go back to high school. They can't get in here. How many times statistically do people move back home after the first year of school? What's happened there? They got trapped in transition. Somebody who graduates college but can't quite get into their industry. They graduated with a degree in business management, but they can't find a job in that compartment. And so they're just doing this remedial job day to day, and what turned out to be 1 week turned out to be 2 years, and then 4 years. And now I'm just working the same job, and I feel trapped in transition. A single who everything was great as a single, and we're going to be fantastic. We're going to have a great marriage. It's going to be awesome. And they can't get there in that first year. They can't get there in the first couple of years. And so they find themselves trapped in transition. How many marriages die in the first couple of years? It's people that get trapped in this transition. I can't go back to being single, but I can't get into that fun, healthy, vibrant marriage. Let's say parents. You're a married couple and you have date night 3-4 nights a week. I mean, that makes me sick. You're able to you go to a movie. I mean, you decide at 9:30 p.m. what you're going to do for the night, But then you have kids, and you see other people with this fun family. They're vacationing. They're taking all these family photos and putting it on Facebook. And you think, I want to go skiing. I want to be at the beach like them. But you got little ones that won't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. And they throw up on you all the time. And truth be told, as a mom, you're losing your sexy self. You feel like I really am falling apart. As a man, you feel like I wanted to be husband, not dad. And we don't have this wife-husband relationship anymore. We have more of a mom-dad relationship. And you get trapped in transition. Financially, it happens. People that are in one compartment, and we're going to start saving, and we're going to start doing this, and we're going to be financially fit and set. But along the way, somehow you get trapped in the transition of this, and I can't ever get ahead. Joel, I go to the Dave Ramsey class, I go to this, I go to that, and I can't get out of this cycle of week to week, week to week, week to week, driving cars that are just 3 months from breaking down. I'm trapped. What about this? Started drinking, started smoking because it was cool. It's what everybody else was doing Saturday night. You were in college and it was fun, and it was just a fun thing. And you never felt like you would be an addict. You never felt like you would be controlled by something. And you think of freedom and being sober, but right now, you're trapped in transition and you drink more than anybody really knows. You've tried to quit smoking plenty of times. You've tried to get off drugs, or you've tried to stop the pornography, or you've tried to stop these things that just got trapped in this thing. I just find people time and time again, when they're trying to start over, get trapped in this place. And how do you break that? A couple of things tend to happen when people are trapped in transition. Here's a few common things that tend to happen. Number one is we tend to confuse who God is. Because we're in something and we start to confuse who God is. God, I thought you were leading me. I thought you loved me. God, if you're all powerful, if you're all loving, if you're all these things, why am I trapped here? Why won't you break things through for me? Start to confuse who God is. Another thing that we start to do is we start to blame others for our unfair reality. You know why I'm in this? Is his fault. You know why our marriage isn't working? It's her fault. You know why I am not enjoying being a parent? It's their fault. You know why I can't seem to break through? It's their fault. It's so easy to blame our reality on somebody else. And truth be told, let's get real in this place right now. Truth be told, some of you are in here, you are trapped in transition. What I'm saying's got a knot in your stomach because you know I'm in the middle that you're talking about. And it seems to be a far better story to tell everybody about what everybody else did versus owning what you contributed. It's a better story to put blame on him. It's a better story to put blame on her. When we're trapped in transition, it's so much easier, and it reads like a better story to blame somebody else. We confuse who God is, we blame our reality on somebody else, and then thirdly, we are consumed with what's next. We're clamor for what's next. How many times do we say, what's the next city we're supposed to be in? What's the next job I'm supposed to take? What's the next step for me? What's next? What's next? You are in a relationship and it dissolves. And you're over here, let's say for here, you're single and you want to be happily married. You might even have been married before and you're divorced and you want a second marriage, and a second marriage that is way better than that first one. But right now I'm trapped in here. I'm trapped in between these realities. And the tendency is to think that time is my enemy. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time for that next job. I'm running out of time to get over this. I'm running out of time for that next spouse. And the clamor is, what's next? Just watch so many people in these cycles trying to overcome things, get trapped in transition. I watch people that start from a place of skepticism. And I want to be a person of faith, but I get trapped along the way. I'll tell you another area where people get really trapped: forgiveness. Maybe you're here today, and let's say, for instance, you're in this category where you've been hurt and you've got unforgiveness towards somebody, and you look at other people that are forgiving and letting go and releasing people, and you think, I want the freedom of that. And you try and take a step, but you're trapped right now. Truth be told, I don't have full forgiveness in my heart, but I also can't go back just to harboring unforgiveness. I've watched Christians time and time get beat up so bad in this process. Is to think, well, if I had forgiven them, then I wouldn't have these feelings, I wouldn't have these emotions, and get trapped in this process. Maybe you're here today and you're trapped right now in some capacity. You tried to start over in a new marriage. You tried to start over in a new city. You tried to start over with overcoming some weakness, flaw, addiction, and you're trapped right now. It's a really difficult thing to get through that, but the good thing is that God blesses us when we're on that process, and God joins us in that process. There's something I want to put up here. When we are going from promises to peace, there's something that we've got to understand, that there's a compartment of time in between. There's a compartment of time in between. For Moses, going from the promise that you're going to be delivered to actually being the deliverer, there was a 40-year process in between. When you look at Paul receives his calling that he's going to be this man of God who goes out, who does this ministry. There's a 14-year period in between in which he is learning, he is studying, he is applying. There's a piece of time before he walks into the peace. What do we do when we're in that time of transition? This is so difficult because it's so emotional. And a lot of you probably can identify with what I'm talking about, being trapped in transition. Do you know this in-between time, why it's so difficult? It's because it's so emotional. And your emotions, just like mine, our emotions are a lot like having a fever. It spikes a lot faster than it comes down. Our emotions just, boom, they get up here, and then it's real slow with coming down. It's a very emotional place when we're in this place of transition. So here's some things that I want to challenge you. And I'm going to push on this. I'm just trying to set some context for this series. What I'm going to push on, some concepts that I'm going to push on through this series, is kind of built around these three things that I want you to remember. If you say, Joel, that's me. I'm in transition right now. I'm in that place and I'm trying to start over. Here's three things you got to remember when you are in that place of trying to start over. Number one, you've got to remember this, that my life and God's character are not interchangeable. Where some people get very, very confused about who God is, I've got to understand when I'm walking through this transition, when I'm starting over, I've got to understand my life and God's character are not interchangeable. Let me play that out. Sometimes we think because things are going good in my life that God is good. How many times do you hear people say, God is good, God is good, all the time, God is good, and life is good for them at that time. When life is really bad, those statements are harder to find from people. And the tendency is to say my life and God's character are interchangeable with one another. Understanding God is loving, God is present, God is all powerful, even when I'm going through some things that I don't understand. For us, pulling back and understanding, God is with us and God is loving and powerful at the start. He's powerful and with us and loving at the conclusion, and He is powerful, loving, and with us even when we are in this place of transition. And some of you can identify with this because you're here, let's say, in Tampa, and Tampa's a transition point. Maybe you're here today and the marriage has been just kind of roller coaster. And God and your life, they've kind of been interchangeable as you understanding when I'm going through this and I'm weathering this transition time period, understanding that my life and His character are not interchangeable, that He is still faithful, He is still loving, He is walking me through this. Number 2, I want you to write this in your notes. Understanding this, that I have the opportunity of life-defining choices. When you're going through a time of transition, when you're starting over, you have the opportunity of life-defining choices in those moments. Here's what I would say. If we were sharing a cup of coffee together, just one-on-one, you're telling me your story and I'm listening, I would remind you that transition times are temporary. Transition times are temporary, but the choices we make in those transitions can have a life-defining impact. And it is a powerful, powerful thing to start making choices when you are starting over, powerful choices that you can make that will have a life-defining effect. I'll give you an example. People that are trying to overcome something, whether it be depression, whether it be an addiction, whether it be a hurt that happened to them, whether it be some kind of habit that I just can't seem to break. In this transition time, from where I am to where I'm headed, there is the opportunity of some very powerful life-defining choices that will have life impact. One of the things that we're going to be starting in 2 weeks, we're going to be starting this on Thursday, the 18th, September the 18th, is we're going to be starting a program called Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is for people that are trying to start over. I'm trying to start over, with the relationship. I'm trying to start over from the hurt. I'm trying to start over from the pain. I need help because I want to go from here to there. And I understand I've tried it on my own and I got trapped in that transition. I tried to get off of the medication on my own. I tried to break that habit on my own. I tried to get past the hurt on my own, but I got trapped in transition. I just encourage you, man, you have the opportunity of a very life-defining choice in this time. And I would encourage you, if you say, Joel, that's me, man, I am in that place, I would encourage you so much to consider being a part of this ministry. I want to show you real quick just a short clip of a video of some people that have been through Celebrate Recovery and have had some of the power, some of the victory, some of the getting through, starting over victories that we're talking about. So can we show that clip real quick? Maybe today you say, Joel, I need that help. Like, I want to start over. I need it. When we dismiss in just a bit, we've got a table in the atrium, Celebrate Recovery, just across from the cafe. I would love to have you check that out. I'd love to have you stop by, get some interest cards, talk to somebody about it. It's going to be starting Thursday the 18th. We would love to partner with you in helping you walk through this transition time from starting over into the victory that God has for you. It's going to be a fantastic ministry, and it might be the very answer that God's given you to have a life-defining choice while you're in between. Let me have you put one more thing on your notes. Third thing to remember when you're starting over, and this one is a big one to me, is that who is more important than what? Who is more important than what? Sometimes when people are in transitions and they're starting over, they're so concerned with what is next. What city, what job, what this, what that. And I just find my experience has been watching people who come into victory is that who is far more important than what. There are times that we are in this transition and we can discover God in a whole new way. We can put our eyes on Christ and we can learn who He is in our lives. We can learn that He's close to us. We can learn that His power is sufficient for us. Paul went through this. Paul was in a time of, he was saying, Jesus, if you can help me change this circumstance. And the scriptures come back to him. The word comes back to him. It says, Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. Even in your weakness, my strength is made perfect. Maybe today you say, Joel, I've been going through a starting over thing. I'm coming off of a divorce, or I'm trying to start this new job, or I'm trying to start this whatever. And who is far superior to what? As you're in this transition time, can I encourage you? Can I encourage you to set your eyes and your priority on a who and not a what? Who God is forming in you, who God is making you to be, yielding those things to you. God, as I go through this time, Lord, I yield to you. I'm yielding my life to you because I want to know you and I want to serve you. One of the amazing things that God offers us in this transition time, which we all go through, is that He joins us in that process and learning who God is. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people that were starting over, going through a transition time, and on the backside, when they got to that place of peace, they got to that next mountaintop, they look back and they say, I learned so much about God. I learned so much about Jesus in that time period. I learned so much about God's love for me and about who I am. Can I just encourage you? Maybe today you're in a starting over process. Maybe you're in a transition process. God might have you right now focusing not on what, but on who. Learning more about Him, learning more about His love for you as a father to a child, learning about His ability. Who is far superior to what? I want to give you one last verse. The verse is this in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. It says this, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. If you look at this, we know that in all things, you'd say probably right there, you'd say, Joel, no, not all things. Joel, if you had any idea what He did to me. Joel, if you had any idea what trajectory she sent me on. In all things, God, listen to me on this, God works. Sometimes we can be confused to thinking that maybe God is inactive, maybe God is distant, maybe God is just watching your life from over here and He's like, I hope you get through it. Good luck. In all things. Even when I've left this mountain, headed to that mountain, and I feel trapped in transition of whatever it might be, in all things, God works for the good, for your benefit, for your victory. I know sometimes when you're trapped in transition, you can think, how is us being infertile? How is us not being able to have a kid good? How can us going through this financial thing be good? How can us going through this situation be good? In all things, God works for good to those who love Him, who have been called according to His purposes. One of the things that I pull back from this is understanding that no matter what we may go through, no matter what we are transitioning in, and I think all of us can make our own applications to this, is whatever we're in and whatever we're starting over and however we're transitioning, God meets us, and in all things, He is lifting His Son's name up Who is far superior to what? This morning, we're going to do something. The ushers are going to move into place. We're going to share in a time of communion, and then we're going to sing a song called I Believe. And here's what I'm going to ask in with this communion time. And I'm going to ask the ushers to go ahead and start distributing. Everybody hold on to your elements. We'll share together. Here's what I'm asking for you. I'm asking you this morning, as we hold these elements and we prepare to receive communion, that whatever it is that I'm starting over, wherever it is that I'm in this process, that I'm focusing more. I choose to focus on the who, not the what. I'm going to focus on Christ. One of the beautiful things about communion is we are able to remember that God loved humanity so much that he would send his son to die for him. And Jesus would die, give his life, and he would conquer death, and he would conquer the grave. Before he did that, though, he took bread and he took cup, and he said to his disciples, this bread that we're going to break together, it represents my body, which is going to be broken for you. This cup, it represents my blood, which is going to be spilled for you. This is not, please hear me on this as you're passing elements. This is not just to add a spiritual moment or religious moment to a service. There's something to that event and that moment that Jesus wanted you and me to capture and know. It was not just for the group just within that dinner table, so to say. It's almost as though God is saying, please know I'm with you. Please know I love you. Please know that my son died for you. No matter what you're going through. Whether you're trying to overcome an addiction, whether you're trying to overcome something, whether you're in transition, trying to go from one thing to the next, I've been starting over. Who is so much more powerful than what? And he will join you. This morning I'm going to pray, and then the band's going to lead us in a time of worship, and then we'll share in communion. Would you pray with me? Say, Jesus, even in this moment, would you touch our hearts? And I pray all across this room, Father, if there are men and women that are in places of transition, in places of starting over, God, would you make this communion time a powerful moment in their life as they look to you, knowing that you are faithful in all things, that you are working all things together for good for them as they love you and they're called to your purposes.